Hey guys, John V here from PhoneArena. You're watching our in-depth video comparison between the Sony Xperia Ion and also the HTC One X. Both for AT&T right now. You can pick them up. They're both high-end devices for the carrier and they flaunt, similar hardware. The HTC One X goes for $200 2-year contract versus $100 for the Xperia Ion. So they're both two top-notch smartphones. If you're looking around to buy one, you got to really consider these two. Well, there's no arguing that both handsets are top-notch when it comes to their construction. It's very solid feeling in the hand, but if you had to pick between the two, which device has the better-looking design, easily the HTC One X, just because we haven't really seen a device like this before, whereas the Xperia Ion, it just follows forth in previous devices from Sony's camp. Also, the HTC One X is technically thinner, and just has a comfortable feel in the hands, rounded compared to the sharp edges of the Xperia Ion. And on top of that, it just looks cleaner thanks to its unibody polycarbonate construction versus the aluminum, the brushed metallic casing of the Xperia One. It does exhibit some debris and some moisture, so definitely the HTC One X is by far the more appealing looking device. Obviously, we love that these two handsets have HD displays, 720 by 1280 pixels. The Xperia Ion has a 4.6-inch HD reality display versus the 4.7-inch Super LCD 2-panel in play with the HTC One X. So as far as details, they're going to be the same. Even in the web browser with fine text, we're able to make out, small details very, very easily with our eyes. So no problems with that. But the biggest differentiator here is just the color reproduction and the contrast. We like the HTC One X Super LCD panel. It just pops out more of its colors, better viewing angles, it maintains its clarity at all angles, and on top of that, you put it in a dark room, it just really shines. But in terms of outdoor usage, we find the HTC One X just a little bit better than the Xperia Ion. Seeing the HTC One X relies on 3 Android capacitors that are spaced far away from one another, it's less prone to accidental presses, whereas the Xperia Ion, its 4 Android capacitor buttons, they're just really difficult to activate. Above the displays, both handsets feature front-facing 1-megapixel cameras. They have the ability to shoot 720p videos. You have their earpieces, and on top of that, they have a LED light for notifications. Unfortunately, we don't like either handset's physical buttons, both the volume controls and dedicated power buttons, just because they're indistinct and the responses aren't that great. Naturally, these two handsets boast micro USB ports for data and charging connectivity, but with the Sony Xperia Ion, it has a dedicated micro HDMI port for video out, whereas on the HTC One X, you gotta use an MHL adapter for that. As for the rear cameras, the Sony Xperia Ion has a 12-megapixel autofocus camera with an Exmor-R sensor, whereas the HTC One X has only an 8-megapixel autofocus camera. They both have LED flashes, and they both have the ability to shoot 1080p videos. As we know, both handsets don't have removable batteries. They're encased inside and we don't have access to them. But with the Xperia Ion, it benefits with the micro SD card slot, so you can expand its memory, whereas on the HTC One X, there's no option for that. Hands down, the HTC One X offers the better Android experience between the two, not only for the fact that it's running the most up-to-date version of Android and Ice Cream Sandwich, but for the fact that HTC Sense 4.0 is just simply a lot more comprehensive and deep with its functionality versus what you find on the Xperia Ion. You can tell just by the various widgets, HTC has done a wonderful job in really giving us a great presentation, whereas on the Sony Xperia Ion, it's pretty much the same thing we've seen on other Sony devices in the past, but when you compare it to the HTC One X and its depth of personalization functionality, it's nowhere close to it. And on top of that, it is running an older version of Android, which is Gingerbread. Typing up long messages isn't a problem with either device, just because with their on-screen keyboards, they're very spacious, and on top of that, responsive here, so no problems. But if you had to pick, we prefer the Sense keyboard, just because it's a little bit larger with its layout, and on top of that, you have quick access to certain punctuations and numbers directly from the main layout. We totally love that both handsets have 4G LTE connectivity, so you really get fast data speeds. As far as general web browsing, both are more than adequate, but there are a couple things we don't like about each. For example, on the Xperia Ion, it just seems like its pinch gestures and kinetic scrolling is just a little bit on the choppy side and doesn't handle Flash content that well versus the HTC One X, which is a lot more fluid. But whenever you do these pinch gestures, it just always has this flashing thing going on with it. Interestingly enough, we like the music players available on both handsets. They're very visually pleasing to the eye, good presentation, basic core functionality. As far as the audio quality, the HTC One X has just a little bit more power than the Xperia Ion, which tends to be a little bit on the weaker side. But they do offer a bunch of different equalizer settings to better enhance their output. Obviously, both handsets are great for watching high-definition videos, like the one we have here, which is encoded in DivX 1920 by 1080 resolution, moving a good fluid rate, sharp details, punchy-looking colors. The Xperia Ion utilizes the mobile Bravia engine to adjust its saturation, but honestly, both are more than adequate for it. Up top, we have the samples taken by the Xperia Ion's 12-megapixel camera, and the bottom, the HTC One X and its 8-megapixel snapper. Overall, qualities are very similar to one another. We didn't find one to be better than the other. Good details, natural-looking colors. Though with the HTC One X, we do notice that its color seems to be has a subtle saturation over what's found on the Xperia Ion. But nevertheless, both are decent enough for most things, and you can really replace your point and shoot with these guys. Likewise, we could say the same thing about the quality of their 1080p videos. Very similar, good details, natural-looking colors, but with the Xperia Ion, we just noticed that its audio recording is a little bit on the distorted side. On the HTC One X, we just also noticed a little bit more artifacting when you're panning very quickly, but overall, again, similar qualities and decent for most things. Calling quality is relatively the same with both handsets. Voices are quite distinctive and clear, so we're able to make them out, but with their earpieces, it's just a little bit on the weak side, so in noisier environments, it's rather difficult to make them out. On the other hand, there's a clear winner when it comes to battery life. The HTC One X actually outperformed the Sony Xperia Ion. It got easily over a day, close to a day and a half even, whereas the Sony Xperia Ion, it actually lasted less than a day. So there you have it, folks. That pretty much wraps up our comparison between these two devices. Now, we know that the Sony Xperia Ion is $100 tier contract in comparison to the $200 on contract AT&T HTC One X. And honestly, yes, you save the money with the Sony Xperia Ion. You still get the same set of features, dual-core processor, 4G LTE connectivity. You got a pretty large screen, but for double the price, there isn't a slight advantage to the HTC One X. For starters, it just simply looks like the better device. It really stands out with its design. And on top of that, its display is a lot more attractive looking than the one found on the Sony Xperia Ion. And on top of that, Sense is just more refined in pretty much all aspects versus Sony's skin. So for double the price, you are paying for a premium, but then again, you are getting a better handset overall. So if you'd like to learn about either devices, guys, you could check out our website, PhoneArena.com. This is John B. Thanks for watching.